Correct. Hey, welcome everybody to Pro Mindset Podcast. Today we have a former Major League Baseball player. His name is Ryan Lavarnway. Tell me, Ryan.
Our guys practice that before we went live.
I know, we can start now. Welcome everybody. Here we have our guest, Ryan.
Ryan Lavarnway. Hi, how are you? I can say my last name just fine.
All right, Ryan Lavarnway. Ryan is an Olympian. So he's got two lives. He's got his performance athletic career as an Olympian, former NCAA batting champion at Yale. He was drafted by the Boston Red Sox. He's got a Super Bowl. I got football in the brain. He's got a World Series ring. He played on 8 teams. Man, you couldn't hit them all?
No, hitting was the strength. I had a hard time catching it.
Okay, well, he was a catcher. That's a bad thing because you got to touch the ball every pitch.
Yeah, unless they hit it.
And now moving into 2024, 2025, you're an author, keynote speaker, motivational coach. You wear lots of different hats. So I want to thank you for joining me today and my craziness. We had a little bit of technical difficulties to get started, so I got a little crazy bug going. But I want to thank you for being on Pro Mindset.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Okay, Ryan, I want you to go back into the brain and to that time frame when you were in high school, and I've seen you speak, and you talked about you weren't that good when you were younger, but you had this dream. All of us got dreams. Every kid's got a dream. And when you're young, people think, oh, that's really cute. This kid wants to be a Major League Baseball player. Or he wants to be an astronaut or president or whatever it might be. But man, once you hit like tween years, teenage years, the world smacks you in the face. And they give you all the reasons why your dreams should die. You should just give up on your dream. So walk us back and talk us through your experience as a baseball player who made it big time, but probably if I went back and asked some of your friends in middle school, they'd be like, oh no, Ryan, no. He'd be the last guy that's going to make it.
Yeah, you can go ask my high school baseball coach. He would tell you I wasn't the one that was going to make it. So I think two things should be true at the same time, and I believe in the duality of it. Number one, you need to focus on the ultimate goal. Where do you want to go? And the person that achieves that dream, what do they do? How can you start to act? How can you start to embody? How can you start to perform like the person that does the thing, right? You don't want to jump to the end. What's the work that they put in? How hard do they work? How often are they working? How do they go about their work? Are they focusing on the fundamentals, right? You can focus on the fundamentals. I also think at the same time that you shouldn't shy away from all of those reasons, right? You're saying the world's going to smack you in the face and give you all the reasons why you should give up on your dreams. I think you should also focus on those things. Focus on the hard times. Focus on your inadequacies. Focus on the things that will hold you back so that you have the roadmap, right? Because if you focus on the things that are supposed to hold you back, you can come up with a way to overcome them or to gain that skill set or to get better at a certain thing or to supersede, right? If there's a door closed, how do you go through the window or the back door or knock another wall down? But if you avoid the things that are supposed to hold you back, you don't know what you need to overcome. So I think focus on the dream. Also focus on the setbacks so that you can overcome them on your way to that dream.
Okay, I like that, Ryan. So don't lose sight of your dream, but be mindful of the obstacles between you and your dream. And that effectively becomes your training program. That's your to-do list. Those are the things those are the fundamentals you got to get better at. Because there's always a gap between where we're at and where our dream is. By definition, our dream is not where we're at. I got a buddy who's an agent in Philadelphia, and every time I talk to him, he's like, I'm living the dream. I'm thinking, no, you're not. Your dream's bigger and better than where you're at today. And so that gap is really defined by all the obstacles between where you're at and where you want to go. So how did you, because I know you talk about your pocket voice and your inner coach and your inner critic and all those, the story you tell yourself is more helpful and more damaging than the story other people tell you. And what I have found is that in the biggest moments, the things in those times when it matters the most, let's just go to baseball. Bottom of the last inning, bases loaded. You're in the batter's box and you're behind, let's say 3 runs. Grand slam, walks off. You get a dub with a walk-off grand slam. In that big moment, so many guys go to, I just don't want to look back. I just don't want to strike out. I don't want to have warning track power. And what do? They hit it to the warning track. They hit it to shortstop. They strike out. So from your perspective and from your experience, how do you train your inner voice? I call it the pocket voice because it's with you all the time, to tell you positive, reinforcing, motivating, confident, based information when you're in that critical moment.
Yeah, I mean, let's first of all, let's be honest with everyone listening. Nobody's good at this all the time, right? All of us struggle. Even Tom Brady, right? Tom Brady's the greatest football player, the greatest winner of all time. He's got the most Super Bowls. He also has the most Super Bowl losses. So let's give a little grace there, where nobody's great at this all the time, right? I hit 155 home runs as a professional baseball player. I had over 950 strikeouts. You're going to strike out. You're going to fail. There was times where I ended the game by making an out. And I remember being at the plate thinking to myself, just don't make the last out. And like you said, right? A lot of times if you're thinking don't make the last out, that's exactly what you do. Versus you change that, you flip it on its head. What's the other side of that? Extend the game. Keep the ball rolling. Get it to the next guy. That's what you are thinking in the best of times. But everybody goes through slumps. Everybody goes through hot streaks. So the key is, how do you extend the hot streaks and minimize the slumps? For me, played in Yankee Stadium. I played all around the world, played in the Olympics. I've been cheered and booed by 50,000 people at a time. But like you said, for me, the voice inside your head, even if it's whispering to you, it's louder than 50,000 people yelling you suck. So how do you get that voice in your head to be telling you something constructive? And it's all about those challenging moments, seeing them as an opportunity instead of seeing them as something to be afraid of. Everything can be an opportunity. Catchphrase, the biggest theme of my speech is I always ask, well, why not? Why not? Why not me? Why can't I be the game changer? Why not more? Why can't we extend this game? Why can't I go for a bigger goal? Why can't I be All-American? Why not us? Why not our team? And you have that chip on your shoulder. And the why not, again, that focuses on the dream and it focuses on the obstacles. Because when you think of that why not, let's take it out of sports for a moment. Interest rates are too high right now. That's why real estate investors might not want to invest, right? There's a change in the government right now. Well, the policies might change. The tax might change. That's why people might not invest right now, right? That's what you see as your hurdle. But you could also see that as an opportunity because everyone else has that same hurdle. So how do you think about it differently? How do you reframe the conversation so that you can win when everybody else is letting that stop?
I like that. Why not me? When I coach people, that's the question I ask them. Why not you? Give me tangible, justifiable reasons why it couldn't be you. Because it can be you. A couple things. One is that Tom Brady also holds the all-time record for the most incompletions by a passer in the NFL. And so it goes without saying that it's a trial and error game. You're going to succeed and you're going to fail. The question is, can you really embody the emotion and the feeling when you succeed? And can you learn a lesson when you fail? And can you show up intentionally the next time you have that at bat or that opportunity? One of the things that I talk about is the concept of creating a performance bubble. And so a performance bubble in baseball is before you step in the batter's box, you better be really, really clear about what you're not going to let it come into your mind. What's not coming in with you? Hey, you struck out on three pitches, the last at bat. That thought doesn't get to come in. The fact that your manager said, hey man, thinking about pinch hitting for you, you better get something done this time. That doesn't get to come in the batter's box. You can go all the way up to the line, But as soon as you step into the batter's box, that doesn't get to come in. So it's really establishing boundaries and anchors. Boundaries keep the things out that don't serve your best interest, and the anchors are the things that do. What are your thoughts on you stepping into the batter's box when you led the country in batting average, almost, I don't know what it was, 467 or something crazy like that? What was your routine? What was your thought process so that you could, and as the season progresses, you got a target on your back. They got you highlighted on the lineup sheet. Hey, man, this guy's leading the country in batting. We're going to shut him down. So now you're getting that pitcher's best. Speak to that.
Yeah, I mean, two things come to mind of that. I remember being in college, especially either that year or the next year more in particular. I would, in my weaker moments, let it get to me. In my weaker moments, in my moments that I'm less proud of now, I would think to myself, I can't wait to get to a level where I'm not so good. I can't wait to go pro. I can't wait to make it to the big leagues where I'm not the best hitter on the team anymore. So then they'll actually pitch to me because I'm so sick of them pitching around me. I'm not getting anything to hit. That was the excuse I let myself have at times that I'm not proud of. I literally remember thinking, I can't wait to get to a level where I'm not so good anymore. And I had to get over that because if I ultimately wanted to get to that level and be the game changer and be the all-star at that level, if I wanted to be like Barry Bonds or Sammy Sosa or Mark McGwire or some of these guys that were my idols, there was no level that existed where they weren't that good anymore. And that's the dream. So I had to come up with a way to get over that. Yeah, if they're not going to pitch to me, if they're going to pitch to me with curveball sliders, if they're going to pitch around me, I got to find a way to beat them anyway. Good. Let them pitch me like I'm the best hitter. Let them be afraid of me. If they pitch and they're scared, they'll make a bigger mistake and I'll capitalize on it. So I had to overcome my own excuses, my own complaints to be able to do that. That was you talk about the things that don't get to make it to the box. That's what I had to overcome. That was my struggle. And then you talk about your anchors. What are the things that are going to help you, the things that you need to intentionally focus on? Well, when I was in the zone, I think about trying to not think about anything, right? I think we've all experienced the flow state where, it just feels easy. But what I would say to that is you're very rarely actually in the flow state and you're very rarely actually thinking about nothing. So at times when I tried to think about nothing, I would try to clear my head. And that's when those negative thoughts, those bad thoughts I didn't want to come up, had the opportunity to come up because I was intentionally pushing out even the positive thoughts. Now the negative thoughts have space. So the approach that I took was I'm going to pick 3 simplified, positive, and intentional thoughts that leave no other space in my head. So I'm going to think aggressive, middle, down angle, right? Simplify the thoughts down into one positive word that I know what it means, but I don't have to think bigger words. But if I'm thinking those intentional thoughts, there's no more space in my brain for the bad stuff to come up.
Until you take a pitch that's outside and the umpire calls a strike. And then you're like, it's like you get thrown off. Or the catcher says something to you. Or, you just take a little mental break and, these things happen in nanoseconds. And you just kind of take in the atmosphere of the stadium and you hear somebody catcalling you and you're like, oh, shit. So it's like, how did you, like I call it the emotional regulator. When you're in that performance bubble and you're in that headspace, you got to be, thoughts come in. Even when you got those 3 thoughts and it's filled up your whole mind, so there's no room for something else, it still comes in. So I said, what I coach people on is you got to have an escape hatch to send it out. And you get to go, hey, nice seeing you. Not today, baby. And send it out as fast as it comes in. You acknowledge it, you're aware of it, and you let it go. But I think that even to go a couple steps back further, Ryan, what did you do in preparation for your games so that when you did step into the batter's box, whether it was your first at bat or it was the bases loaded scenario, or the game's on the line at the end of the game, so that you could embody who you were without like taking the little stroll from the on deck circle to the batter's box and go, my God, I gotta be positive. What was your premeditated plan? And if you had it, what is it? If you didn't have it, what would it be now?
So in college, I always listened to the last song I always listened to was TLC Waterfalls, Don't Go Chasing Waterfalls. I was a high energy guy, and that would bring me down a little bit, because baseball is different than football. I can't go out there and try to smack someone, hit them as hard as I can, right? If the heart rate elevates, you lose those motor skills. So I needed to be calm. I needed to be under control, aggressive, but under control. So I was always trying to bring myself down a little bit to not do too much, because you try to hit it 500 feet, you're not going to hit it at all. You're going to strike out. So I try to hit it 10 feet over the wall. That's it. Doesn't matter how far it goes, it counts the same. So I'm trying to control my mindset. But what I did a lot in my career was I was big at meditation. I would try to close my eyes, play some rain sound or some subtle music, and just for 10 minutes, just quiet the mind, visualize what I want to do. I would focus on, I wanted to hit 300 every year, 20 home runs and 100 RBIs. Those were my 3 goals. Again, big goal, duality, 2 things possible at once. Big goal. This goal takes 8 months to do. You can't do it today.
Right.
But you can do your job today to work towards that, right? How do you eat an elephant? 1 bite at a time. So it's the duality of, this is my goal. This is the thing I want to accomplish by the end of the year. And this is what I have to do today to move towards that goal to make that happen.
Okay. So you brought up meditation. What are some of the other tools you had in your toolbox that enabled you to perform at the highest level during the game that you did pre-game? You did in the dugout. You did during batting practice. You did at home before you even went to the stadium. What are some of the things, like today, you're a keynote speaker. What are some of the things you do today so that when you show up on stage, you influence the people that are influenceable, you make the impact that you're capable of making, and that you resonate the message, your message, but that it touches the people that are listening?
Yeah. I think depending on where you're at in the cycle, right? I very much believe in that the roller coaster of riding a long season is real. And I don't think you fight it. I think you embrace it, right? You're going to be hot. You're going to be in the zone. You're going to be cold. You're going to have to work harder. You're going to be hot again. And it's a cycle, right? I see it now that I'm not in the game anymore. I see it. One of my good friends, Kevin Newman, he was a first rounder out of Arizona, played with him with the Pittsburgh Pirates. He just signed another extension. He's still in the game. He broke the record for highest batting average in spring training a couple of years ago. Guess what happened the first month? Roller coaster. Cold. He hit terribly for a month. Everybody's like, what happened? What happened? Panic. I'm like, nothing happened. It's a roller coaster, baby. He was up. Now he's down. He'll get hot again. Just give him enough time. So the key is, for me, when I'm hot, I want to extend it. I want to keep that going. I want to not overthink it. I want to capture those feelings, bottle them up. What music am I listening to? Build a routine where I can continue to do the same thing every day. There was a stretch in 2011 where I hit 9 home runs in 11 games. I had the same sandwich for lunch every day. I listened to the same Pandora station every day. I did laundry, but I did the same underwear every day once they were clean, right? Routine. I want to keep this going. Then I was on the bottom part of the roller coaster, right? If I'm struggling, now I want to understand what made me good. I don't want to just throw new things at the wall and try new things every day, but I got to trust the process, right? What was I feeling when I was being good, and how can I try to replicate that again? And then one thing I remember specifically doing, or actually let's go with 2 things here. One thing I would do was I would listen to stand-up comedy before the game, because laughter releases endorphins. It unlocks your creativity. And I feel like baseball can be creative at times and your genius can come out. Another thing I would do sometimes is I would try to stare down the pitcher. And this was before the pitch clock, but I'd walk to the plate. I'd try to add a little strut. I'd try to beat him mentally and emotionally before I actually beat them in the game. Sometimes it worked, sometimes it didn't. Sometimes, you grab your downstairs. You've seen some baseball players do this before, but I would try to feel like I won before I actually got in the box. So when it's going good, do the same thing, routine, extend it. When it's going bad, maybe some comedy, maybe some fake it till you make it with that confidence.
Okay, so what you just described to me, Ryan, is patterns. And when things are going well, you want to keep that pattern going. Pattern of thinking, pattern of behavior, your habits, your schedule, everything. And when things are cold, you want to have pattern interrupts. Comedy is one of the best pattern interrupts on the planet, and that's why we laugh, because it's something we didn't see coming. And so when you are struggling in the batter's box, any type of pattern interrupts you can do, change your momentum, change your mojo. Okay. So that's what I heard you say. And, I feel like professional sports is a microcosm of a roller coaster ride every day. And then every week, every month, every season is a roller coaster. And it's very similar to the stock market. I mean, if you watch, it's like looking at the hourly charts compared to the yearly charts. You look at the yearly charts, man, the trend line just keeps going up. But you look at the daily or weekly, it was a roller coaster. And, if you have any fear and you invest out of fear, you might have sold. So it's like the longer time horizon you look at, the smoother it is. So here's the problem with what we're talking about. You're a rookie. You just got called up from the minors. You get thrust in the starting lineup because they need you. Not they don't want you. They need you. And you start out over 20. And the head games and the mental challenges you have in that moment during that time, that's over 4 or 5 games, is psychotic for most players. True, false?
I could laugh now because I've experienced this so many times. So the quick and dirty version of my story is I played in the big leagues 10 years. The slightly longer story is that I got called up and sent down 26 different times. Some of my call-ups were for 3 games. I had a call-up for 2 at-bats. I had a call-up where I was up for a month. I got 6 pinch hit at-bats, played 0 defense. So I had to learn how to perform at that peak moment, right? Because my opportunity might be 2 at-bats. My opportunity might be 6 at-bats. My opportunity might be 1 game. And maybe I'm hot, maybe I'm cold, maybe I was riding the roller coaster in AAA. Maybe I got called up because I was performing great. Maybe I got called up because the guy ahead of me got hurt and they need a warm body. There was both. And sometimes I got sent down when I was hot. And there was other times I should have got sent down way sooner, but there was no other warm bodies to take the role. So I know this mindset, and I know when the roller coaster gets interrupted, or you ride the full roller coaster, but this part's in the big leagues, and then this part's back in AAA, and then this part's in AAA, and then this part's in the big leagues, right? How do you interrupt it? How can you focus when it matters? And to me, it was eventually, once I got good at it, I matured. It took me probably till I was 30 years old. Whatever part of the roller coaster you're at when you get called up, when you get that opportunity, doesn't matter. Context doesn't matter. Whether you're facing a Cy Young Award winner and you haven't played in 5 days, context doesn't matter. You're only playing day games. You're only playing travel days when you don't hit BP on the field. You're out of a rhythm. You didn't get enough sleep. Doesn't matter. Don't let yourself have that excuse, because at the end of the year, your baseball card, I don't know how many people watch this on video. I'm holding up my baseball card right now. The back of it, that batting average, that slugging percentage, that OPS doesn't come with context. Nobody cares you only face Cy Young winners. Nobody cares you only played day games. End of the year, how'd you do? How'd it go? When you look at my stats from 2018 in the big leagues, I hit 750. You're going to ask yourself maybe for some further context because nobody hit 750. So then you're like, oh, you only got 6 at bats. But I performed. Back of the baseball card, 750. You look at the baseball card from 2014, batted 0 in the big leagues. You're gonna maybe ask for some more context there because I only got 10 at bats. I went 0 for 10. But the stats show. That's what they show. Your results are your results, and you got to live with that whether you like it or not. So don't let yourself make excuses in the moment.
Okay, so I had lots of thoughts from that. That's amazing. What I see with professional athletes is they either play an inside game or an outside game. And the guys that play an outside game look at their circumstances. They do make excuses. They pay attention to the connection with their coach, their teammates. Hey, you know what? Let's say it's a quarterback in football. He gets in when they're getting hammered by somebody and the starter doesn't even want to play anymore. So he has a little bit of a groin pull and he just kind of exaggerates it so he can bow out. Okay. I think I saw a little bit of that Monday night and then he came back. But the bottom line is, if you're playing an outside game, you're allowing stimuli, circumstances, everything else to influence you unnecessarily. If you play an inside game, it's you and you. You're in the batter's box. Hey, is there any stadium in the bigs that the pitching mound is a little bit farther away from the plate? Is it the same in every place? Yeah. Is the distance to first base pretty much the same in every stadium? Yeah. Everything's the same. Strike zone is supposed to be the same. So our brain needs to focus on, our mindset needs to focus on the sameness. It doesn't matter if you got Cy Young on the mound or you got a rookie that this is his first time he's been in the bigs. It's you and you. And it's an inside game. And when you play an inside game, guess what happens? You got control. When you play an outside game, you got no control. So when you start thinking about context, wouldn't it make a lot more sense to have more control over your headspace than less? I call it giving away your power. So think about how many times you were in the batter's box and you gave away your power. And what I mean by that is you thought the at-bat was going to be a bomb before you stepped in the batter's box. And then if you had a little bit of confidence that it was a high and outside pitch and the umpire calls a strike. So you're down up in the count 0-1. Now it creeps in like, yeah, this one's not going to work. At all times, if you can be focused on the inside game, you could pitch hit with an 0-2 count and still have a successful at-bat. I'm not saying you're going to hit a home run, but you could still have a successful at-bat. Have you ever pinch hit? Did you ever pinch hit for a batter mid at-bat where you were down in the count, or was it always a brand new at-bat?
I don't know that I ever stepped in the middle of the at-bat, but there's one at-bat in particular, that year that I was with the Pirates, 2018, where I pinch hit in extra innings, and you can hear the announcers on the broadcast, the home announcers, our announcers, saying, I don't know why Clint Hurdle's going to Lavarnway here. He's got other options on the bench. He gets the job done. And I hit a walk-off hit as they were literally doubting me on TV. It's one of the best feelings because you talk about the inside game versus the outside game. I hadn't played in 2 weeks. It didn't matter. I didn't allow the outside game to affect me. I was ready. I did what I needed to do to prepare, and I got the job.
Absolutely. Okay, so you have a keynote. Everybody that I do keynotes too. What is your message? I'm sure you got a handful of messages, but what is one of the messages that you would like to share? And perhaps a story that accentuates that message, and preferably from your personal experience.
Yeah. So there's so many lessons, and depending on what the people that bring me in, what the theme they're looking for is, the main message shifts slightly. But in general, it's all about overcoming adversity. You can overcome adversity. A lot of what we've talked about today in this podcast already, my career, most of my success came after failure. So you can't let failure stop you or discourage or dissuade you. Look at the failure, take what you can learn from it, and move on. And from a leadership perspective, there's a story I tell where Terry Francona sent me down to the minor leagues. But the way he did it was he was encouraging me to continue to think big, dream big, and have confidence in myself. Because sometimes we allow those realistic doubts, and the realistic ones are the hardest ones to overcome because they might be real, right? You might not be good enough anymore. You might need to give up on your dream. But if you let those realistic expectations, those realistic limitations stop you, then you'll never do anything great. And what he said to me in that moment was, sometimes you have to be just dumb enough to think you're smarter and better than you are. Because Major League Baseball is the best baseball league in the world, the best players in the world. There's only 780 jobs. For your position, there's only 30 jobs. So you might need to think you're a little better than you are, or else nobody would believe they're one of the best 30 in the world. You might need to think you're a little bit better than you are until you earn it, until you prove it that you are as good as you thought you were.
Ryan, I would say it's fair to say that there's a lot of people that were better than you that never played in the bigs.
Amen.
And there's people that you're better than that played more in the bigs than you did. Right? So what I think our little pea brain does is we play this game of comparison, and we find all the reasons why we're not good enough, all the reasons why he or she or whoever is better than us. And there's always going to be verifiable evidence that they are better in certain areas. But if that's the game you play, you will never reach your potential. You'll never be great. You won't have the career that you dreamed of. So I call it naive confidence. And some of my best clients didn't know or acknowledge that they weren't that good. Everybody knew it but them. And they made, multiple millions of dollars, played a decade in an environment where they were not the best. So when I said it off air at the beginning that, managers and coaches sometimes struggle in identifying talent, they fail to look at the mindsets of their players. They look at their swings. They look at their speed, their arm talent. They look at some of those measurable attributes that you have in baseball. One of the things I'd love to see is what did you bat in moments that didn't matter? Nobody on base, game 0-0. It doesn't matter what inning. Could be anything but the last couple innings. What did you bat at bat? What was your batting average? And then what was it like when it mattered? Everybody could have a different definition of what mattered means. Okay. It could be when there's, 2-1 and you're down 1. Could be, that walk-off type opportunity. I would argue that some players perform better when it matters the most. Most players don't. They perform worse when it matters the most. And there's a few that might perform equally regardless of the situation. And the ones that perform equally, maybe it's a stroke of luck, but more than likely they're playing an inside game because they're not so attached to the circumstances, the outcomes, the expectations, the results, the wins, the losses, the demotions, the recognition, the post-game interviews, all the things that happen when you succeed or being the GOAT. What are you going to tell your wife when you get home? What are you going to tell your boys when you get back in the dugout after you strike out? That's the guys that are playing the outside game. So from your perspective, where did you thrive and where did you struggle as a player?
Where did I strive and where did I struggle? I felt like when I was right, and again, with the inside game, I think I was a big inside game player. But again, the roller coaster is real, especially in baseball. When I was right, I felt like I could hit anybody. Didn't matter if Cy Young winner. I had an 8-game hit streak against 8 Cy Young winners in a row in the big leagues. Doesn't matter who's throwing. And if I'm wrong, brother, your sister could have got me out left-handed if she was a righty, right? It didn't matter. So to me, I really did believe that if I took care of my business, I was going to win. And if I was off somehow, my swing wasn't right, I had no legs underneath me, I wasn't the right level of aggressive, then it didn't matter who was pitching. It wasn't going to go well.
Okay. Let's go back to playing catcher. Catcher is the quarterback on the field. Catcher is the extension of the coaches. Catcher is kind of like the mentor and manager of the pitcher. The catcher is the boss. The catcher touches the ball on every pitch, unless it's hit. Describe for everybody that's never played baseball at that level, what it's like to be a catcher when you got to have a pretty solid relationship with the home plate umpire. You got to be connected to your manager, and you got to know the personalities and tendencies of your pitchers. Even so much so you might call a pitch that they're going to turn down because they just are going to turn it down. So you tell them, you give them a sign for a pitch that you don't want them to throw because they're going to turn it down. Am I overthinking this, or as a catcher, do you have all those roles?
No, you're right. There's a reason that there's not a lot of catchers that are also good hitters. It's because defensively, there's so much responsibility, not only handling your own business physically, catching, receiving, blocking, throwing, all the things you do physically, but emotionally, right? You need to make sure you're working with the umpire behind you and showing respect, but also trying to get more, trying to get more strikes. You're working with the pitchers where, honestly, the pitching mound is the loneliest place in the world. You got the ball, game doesn't start, game doesn't go without you, and you live and die with the results. So as the catcher and that pitcher, you got to make him feel like he's not alone and guide him through a game. And sometimes pitchers are going to throw what they want to throw, regardless of how many times they have to tell you no. And other times, the pitcher is going to throw whatever you put down, and he'll never say no to you. So then you have more responsibility to call the game. And sometimes there's somewhere in between. Controlling the running game, maybe shifting some defenders here and there. There is a lot to go on. So as a catcher, you got a lot on your plate.
What was the most challenging for you and for catchers, period? What aspect of that?
In a funny way, catching knuckleballs was the hardest. I didn't do it so often. I actually tied the record for most pass balls in one inning, catching knuckleballs one time. But on a more serious note, and getting after what you mean, the most difficult was catching Clay Buchholz. Clay Buchholz was the guy that was very specific about what he wanted. And even if I called the right pitch on the first finger that I put down, there were times where he would shake no because he wanted to trick the hitter. And he was trying to play pity chess with, I'm saying no, now the hitter's second guessing, but now I'm like fastball that side, curveball, slider, changeup, cutter, changeup. No, fastball? Oh, that's what I called first. That's what you want?
How much communication do catchers and pitchers have pre-game about those types of things?
You have a meeting every day, starting catcher, starting pitcher, pitching coach. You get the scouting report. You come up with a plan for each hitter. This is how I want to attack them. No strikes. We're ahead in the count. He's ahead in the count. Runners on base. You come up with a game plan, and you both hopefully are on the same page. But then you go out there, and if the pitcher's curveball isn't working, or he can't control the ball on this side of the zone, game plan often goes out the window. You got to play baseball with your eyes, and sometimes you can't go with what you planned on.
What was the biggest challenge with dealing with the umpire in terms of you're framing the pitch, you get the strikes, but then it's a big pitch, and it's really a strike, and he calls a ball? How do you control your emotions? What kind of, you could feel, the umpire can feel your energy. You can feel the umpire's energy, just like you guys can feel the catcher can feel the energy of the batter. How did you manage your emotions, your energy, and your relationship when the umpire betrayed you, so to speak?
Yeah, I mean, you have to understand that the umpire is not trying to get it wrong, right? The umpire is a human being. He wants to get it right. Everyone in the world, both teams want the umpire to get it right, except for when you're the catcher, you're trying to trick him to get it wrong in your favor, right? But he's trying to get it right. So if he gets it wrong and you know he got it wrong, it's frustrating. You give him the benefit of the doubt of he didn't do it on purpose. But then you also, as a catcher, you got to take your own responsibility. Could I have caught that ball better? Could I have presented it to him better? And then you, instead of getting frustrated again, that's the outside versus the inside game in a nutshell right there. Am I blaming this guy, or could I have caught that ball better? Could I have positioned my body better to give him a better view of it? Could I have set up my target more on the plate, less on the plate? So I always try to take responsibility where I could. The receiving pitches, the low ball was tough for me. I'm 6'4". I'm a big body. I played at 245 pounds. I'm a big body for an umpire to look over. I oftentimes didn't get pitches at the bottom of the strike zone, and that was really my biggest kryptonite, why I wasn't in the big leagues longer. And if I had understood that about the game and about how valuable that was sooner, my career may have been different. I don't know. It's too late to know. But when those pitches didn't get called, how much are you taking responsibility, or how much are you blaming someone else?
Okay, self-assessment. You just acknowledged that if you could have been better with the low strikes, you might have played longer. When did you first identify that as a weakness? Was that something you figured out after you were done?
July 2019.
And where was that in terms of your career?
8 years after I made my major league debut, 5 years before I retired.
Isn't it amazing how the things that are right in front of you, sometimes you can't see? Even as a pro athlete, that's your whole dedication, your focus is on your career. And so if we would do an assessment on every Major League Baseball player, all 780, whatever they are, some of them have bigger weaknesses than others, but a lot of them are not aware of that weakness.
So I think during my career, the statistical analysis revolution happened. And especially for the catcher position, the way that we were evaluated got flipped on its head during my career. When I first got drafted in 2008, there was no way to measure receiving metrics objectively. So all you had to do was pass the eye test. Does it look right? Do the pitchers like throwing to them? It's totally subjective. So that was the least important thing that you did. And the most important thing you did was throw out runners, pop time, stopwatch, old technology. And then kind of in the middle was, do you keep the ball in front of you? How often do you block the ball versus how often do you have to chase it to the backstop? During my career, StatCast, Hawkeye, all these the K-Zone that you see on TV, all these new technologies were developed, and the statistical analysis revolution began to where they started to understand how important stealing strikes was. Now that it wasn't just the eye test, you could measure how many times did that exact pitch get called a strike, and how did that flip the count? How many less runs scored on average per inning? The problem was, at the beginning of the statistical analysis revolution, teams were fighting for how can we use this as an evaluative tool first? How can we evaluate talent better than anyone else? And what's only caught up recently, since my career ended, was teams understanding that everyone's doing this. Now, how do we use this as a coaching tool better than anyone else? So early in my career, I was being evaluated differently without being coached differently. And it was, again, my responsibility to ask, how am I being evaluated? How can I think outside the box and self-coach differently and understand, well, if I'm being evaluated differently, I need to put effort in different.
That is something that a lot of general managers should hear. That is a wonderful synopsis of what's going on in sports with analytics right now, is utilizing that not just for evaluation, but using it for development and coaching. Here's my question then. Let's say you were the person that was in charge of talent acquisition and development for a Major League Baseball team, whether that's the head of the farm system or maybe it's the GM. What is the mindset trait that you would measure, and how would you measure it, that teams don't even have a clue about? Maybe they have an inkling that, oh yeah, this guy's shows up awesome in big moments. This guy's clutch. But how would you quantify? So let's say instead of there being a statistical technological revolution, there's a mindset revolution that you can utilize analytics to compare and contrast different athletes that have the same skills.
That's a good question. And I think if anyone answers that, they'll be ahead of the game for information warfare, won't they?
Absolutely.
It's tough to judge a guy's mindset, because without having an EKG on him all the time, or a heart rate sensor, or a stress sensor with how much dopamine is being released, how much cortisol is being released from the stress hormones, you can't tell someone's mindset unless they tell you. It's a purely subjective metric, self-reported, subjective, how you read his body language. You can't actually get objective data. And what I'll tell you is that in baseball, the advanced metrics will argue against clutch being real. There's a book about baseball advanced statistical analysis, literally called The Book. And in the book, they have a whole chapter dedicated to disproving the fact that you can measure clutch, or at least at a tiny caveat saying you can maybe measure it, but there's not enough of a sample size to really have any statistical relevancy. So you're asking me, how could we take that next step? Well, there's these new Aura rings, or there's the Whoop band that can tell you in real time what's a guy's heart rate. You could have, I could imagine, I don't think this technology exists, but something similar to how they have the patch for people with low blood sugar to measure the blood sugar every 15 minutes in real time. I can imagine a world where you could measure the stress release, the cortisol release, the dopamine release, and see who enjoys the hard times, who's fearing the hard times. But I can also see pushback of players and unions saying, you can't use that internal information against me because everyone's afraid it's going to be used for evaluative purposes, not for coaching purposes. So I think, how do we get that objective data? It's going to be very difficult.
That's why no sport has done it. It's nearly impossible. Here would be my take on it. My take on it would be the person that shows up in the batter's box. I want to understand that person. I want to understand their story. I want to understand the story they tell themselves. I want to understand their past. I want to understand what were those markers, those defining moments in their athletic career, either interactions with their coaches, interactions with teammates, interactions with their dads, where they took a turn, positively or negatively. Because working with NFL guys for 30 years, it always boils down to something somebody said in the 7th grade, when they got cut in the 11th grade, when they had a big draft party and they were embarrassed because they didn't get picked when everybody showed up and expected them going 3rd round. It's all those things. And so I would do a story profile on every player. And then every time they had a failure or a success, it's like, man, if you go up and you hit a nice line drive to, in the gap and, somebody gets a great jump on the ball and it's an out, that's not a big play. That's just an out. Baseball's full of those. Okay. They're full of, just like nondescript plays. I'm talking about when the guy chokes or the guy performs in the clutch. I'm going to debrief with them, but he's not going to necessarily know what I'm doing because I'm trying to connect that moment to the belief that he started a long time ago. And when I understand his belief structure, I understand his story, I can predict his future. And if he doesn't rewrite his story, his future will be consistent with the pattern that he's always had. With some, standard deviation of, he might get a hit every now and then. He may have a clutch play every now and then. But generally speaking, like Steph Curry in basketball loves the big moments. There are just certain guys that Patrick Mahomes, 13 seconds against the Bills a couple of years ago. Big moment. Just like every time you turn around, Patrick Mahomes, how is he wired? He was a bat boy for the Rangers. He grew up around a lot of successful people. I can only imagine the story he told himself when he was 6 and 7 and 10 was, I'm going to be like this someday. And then he would get to know these guys and find out they're just human like he is. They put their pants on the same way he does. So it was never too big for him. And he's got this honing device on whatever it takes to win. You put him in a situation like Patrick, he could go out for coffee and he could show up in the 4th quarter. And he could look at the scoreboard and look at the situation. And he knows how to show up. Where a lot of guys, they choke because of the emotions attached to their past. And and it's dangerous being a dad. It's very dangerous being a father because you're thinking about your clients, you're thinking about your profession, you're thinking about your speech, your book, your coaching, whatever you're doing at the moment, your client call, and your kid just wants a few minutes of your time. And in a hasteful moment, you might go, hey, man, I'll get with you here in 30 minutes when I'm off the phone. Well, what did you basically tell your kid? My client's more important than you. You didn't tell them that, but that's what they received. So one of the things I've learned in the last year, it's not what we say. It's what's received. It's not what is intended. It's what is received. So even like your managers over the years, they might have said the same thing, but as you grew as a man, as a professional, you received it differently. So I'm kind of talking in circles here, but I'm making a point that story matters. When a batter steps in the batter's box, and it doesn't matter the circumstances, he's carrying with him his story. And if you don't change his story and you don't help him rewrite his story, you're going to keep getting what you've been getting. And that's why I think players sometimes they cannot be they could be less talented and they can perform better because their stories, they're not carrying a lot of baggage into the batter's box. Thoughts on that?
My story for most of my high school career was that I wasn't good enough to play on the varsity team. I wasn't good enough to play my own position once I did make the varsity. So I didn't make the varsity team until my senior year. And my main position was catcher as I played in the big leagues. I never caught one game on the varsity in high school. Wasn't good enough. We had a kid that was in my grade that hit puberty about 16 years before I did. He was a grown man. I was a little boy. Same grade. He's the varsity player. He was better than me. I can totally see that he was. I could see it at the time. I wanted to get in the game, so I played another position. I played left field. And for me to play left field, I'm the slowest runner in the world. So the coaches had to take a chance on me providing enough offense and catching the balls I was going to get to make up for the balls that I wasn't going to get to because I was so darn slow. Okay. And, I played pretty well. I played pretty good left field. I hit the ball. I hit 480 my senior year of high school. But there was a spring break trip early in our season, my senior year, where I got benched. It's my first year playing varsity. In my mind, I still am going to make the big leagues somehow, some way. I'm going to find a way to get there. I got benched. And the kid that played above me at that time, his name was Aaron Breslow. He was my grade also. At that point, I was 8 inches taller than him. He was, a little guy. He was fast, though. I could put it out of the park. He could lay down a bunt. I could hit the double. He could steal a base. So in the outfield, he probably made more sense defensively. And I had a hard time because my story was I wasn't good enough. I got benched. I wasn't good enough. My story. And I still remember listening to this song on repeat over and over and over. Something about get on my level, get on my level, get on my level. And that seeped into my brain. And when I got the chance to play again, I hit a homer to dead center field. My first at bat back. And my second at bat back, I'm still get on my level, get on my level, get on my level. Second at bat, I hit another homer to dead center field. And I never got benched again the rest of my life. But it was like that trauma of getting benched, that setback, that failure. I responded to that by kind of going into my cave and deciding that I was going to step up my level. And my level was going to be up here where no one could meet it. The next opportunity I got, I was going to take it. So instead of crying and pitying myself, I used it as a motivation, and it propelled me to the next level.
Two things, Ryan. Number one, you talked about it before with respect to failure. Some people see failure as the finish line. It's over. It's over. I failed. I thought I was going to make it. Not going to make it. It's over now. Other people see the failure as the starting line. When you failed in high school, it was the starting line. It was when you changed. It was your pivot point. It's the thing that you basically made a commitment to yourself that your standard then became leave no doubt. I'm going to take this out of my manager's hands. My coach no longer is going to control me. I'm going to be so good, he can't take me out. You don't know you did that, but that's effectively what you did. And so one of the things about pro mindset is your story. The second one is your standards. And you need to be very intentional about your standards. Leave no doubt as a standard. Why not me as a standard? Everything you've got is a standard. There's a zillion of them. Pick a couple. And then you should operate in alignment with that standard. And so before you were benched, when you finally made it to the varsity, you were probably like everybody else. You had a dream and you just wanted to play. And then you didn't do anything wrong. He just kind of you were chocolate and coach like vanilla. He wanted somebody faster, just a choice. That happens a lot in sports, right? But when you leave no doubt, you take the power away from your coach. Pro mindset's also about reclaiming your power. Because we all give up our power. We have power outages all the time. Athletes are really good at it. But if you can reclaim your power, you get control again. Because in sports, one of the hardest, I would say the hardest pill to swallow for a professional athlete is when they feel like no matter what I do, it's not good enough. The coach is not, you don't feel seen. You don't feel heard. You feel like when you make a good play, the coach is not looking. When the other guy makes a bad play, he's not looking. But when he makes a good play, he's, going, hey, see that? And when you make a bad play, he notices every time. So it's a quadrant of, when you're going like on the depth chart or in the lineup and it's you versus somebody else. It's never you versus somebody else. It's you versus you. But the coaches and your teammates and the media and everybody else makes it about you versus somebody else. And as soon as you fall into that trap of you versus somebody else, it's the beginning of the end, because it's very difficult to recover when you're in that comparison mode. Because when you're living in the river of comparison, when you're floating in that river, hey, you're just going to go out you're going to find your way in the ocean. The only way that you can get your control back is make it about you and not about them, and stop comparing. So we've talked for an hour. Seems like it's been about 10 minutes. What else would you like to share that is with our audience? This is about mindset. What is some jewel, some wisdom that you would like to share, that you share maybe in your keynote, that I'm going to thank you for sharing with them? Anything you want, whatever you want.
Yeah, this is something I say to people when they have a tryout coming up that they're nervous about. Or a friend of mine, when she had a big keynote on a Vegas stage at the MGM, she was nervous about it. And when you're nervous about performing, I like to say that you can't fool anyone, right? When you're going to a tryout, if the coaches know what they're looking for, can't fool anyone. You are who you are. You've either done the work or you haven't done the work. You've either prepared or you haven't prepared. You're either good or you're not good. You can't fool anyone. So when you go out there, just be you. If you try to have some special, outstanding, best day of your life, you're not going to fool anyone. They know you're not that good, right? Either your swing's good and you hit it, or your swing is crappy and you just ran into it, right? Best day of your life, but you're not actually that good. You're not fooling them. If you go out there and have the worst day of your life, you're not fooling anyone, right? The people that know what they're looking at will see your swing's beautiful. He's just not connecting today. Maybe the BP thrower's no. You go out there, you bomb a keynote, they can tell you're good, or they can tell you're not good. You can't fake it. So do the work to make yourself into the person that you want to be. Don't try to fool anyone. Don't try to fake it. Do the work.
I love it. Be you. I'm a man of faith, and one thing I can tell you is God created each and every one of us unique, imperfectly perfect. And we're designed for a purpose. We're here on an assignment. And the best thing we can do to serve people is to be ourselves. I can't be you. You can't be me. You wouldn't want to be me, but you got to be you, the best version of you. And as an athlete, if you don't like how you show up, you hit the nail on the head. That's your attack plan. Get better. Figure out where you got to get better. And ultimately, even when you get better, you're still being yourself. Ryan Lavarnway, thank you very much for being on Pro Mindset today. You were a breath of fresh air. I really appreciate your perspective. You got wonderful, wonderful experiences. I can tell you being you make a big impact on the people that you speak with.
Thank you, Brad. This was fun. I could tell that we have a very similar mindset, and I hope whoever your listeners are, I hope they take something away from it.
Thank you, Ryan. Hey, it's Craig Doman, the host of Pro Mindset Podcast. I want to thank you for listening or watching today's show. And you can catch us every week on the normal social media platforms like YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, and all the listening podcast platforms. I hope you enjoyed today's show. And more importantly, I hope you gained a pro mindset insight. Please be sure to rate and review Pro Mindset Podcast. And I look forward to catching up with you on our next show.